Welcome to TM Talks. It's a weekly series for meditators about personal development and the growth of higher states of consciousness. My name is Mario Orsatti, and our guest today is David Lynch. David Lynch is an American filmmaker, painter, photographer, musician, sound designer, actor, and philanthropist. David is best known for writing and directing films such as Elephant Man, Wild at Heart, The Straight Story, Blue Velvet, and Mulholland Drive. These films have been regarded by critics as among the best films of their respective decades. David has also received awards for his groundbreaking television series, Twin Peaks. In a feature on the 40 best film directors in the world, The Guardian described David Lynch as, quote, the most important director of this era. And for those of us who practice Transcendental Meditation, even more important, David is also the founder and chairman of the Board of Trustees of the David Lynch Foundation for Consciousness-Based Education and World Peace. He has helped bring the Transcendental Meditation program to more than 1 million children and adults worldwide through his foundation. Just before we begin the discussion with David, for those listening to this interview, if you would like to ask a question of David Lynch, just email them to questions@tm.org, and we'll do our best to ask David as many as we can. David, welcome to TM Talks.
Mario, can you hear me?
I certainly can. How are you?
Great to see you, Mario, from South Philly. So good.
David, before we start talking about TM and how much it's meant to your personal and professional life, I know everyone wants to hear that. Would you mind if I just ask you a couple of questions about...
Mario, ask me anything you want.
Oh, that's a dangerous offer.
No, it goes. Offer stands.
You started out studying painting. You studied at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, and later in Philadelphia. You studied at the prestigious Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts, first art school in the United States. A few years ago, there was a large survey of your paintings and drawings there. So you're clearly very active in painting, still to this day. How does painting fit in with what we all understand is your primary field of work, your work as a filmmaker?
Mario, I've told this story a bunch of times, but I'll tell you it once again.
Thank you.
I was in Boise, Idaho, and I love Boise, Idaho. I consider that really my hometown, along with Spokane, Washington. But I was in the 8th grade studying, going to junior high school, and I was doing well in science of all things. And my father was transferred to Washington, D.C., and it was a very sad thing for us, the kids to be moved away from Boise, Idaho, but he ended up in Alexandria, Virginia, across the river from Washington, D.C., and going to a school called Hammond High School in the 9th grade. And I signed up. You had to sign up for, your whole 4 years. I signed up for science classes. And that I was like written in stone from then on. I had a girlfriend named Linda Stiles in the 9th grade. And one night I was over at her house, and it was about 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night. And I was out leaving her house, presumably to go home. And in the front yard on the grass at night, I met a fellow named Toby Keeler. And we started talking. And he went to a private school, so he didn't go to the same school I went to, but he was the same age. And he told me his father was a painter. And I thought maybe a house painter. And he said, no, 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 a fine art painter. Mario, a bomb went off in my head like an explosion. And in a millisecond, I knew that was what I wanted to be. That was it. And from that moment on, all I wanted to be was a painter. That was it. And I begged him. His father had a studio. I begged him to take me to his studio that night. But it was that weekend he took me. And from then on, all I wanted to do was paint. And that's all I did. And I flunked physics. I would have gotten maybe a C probably in physics, but I never went to class. And I wanted to get out. So during the class, I went down to the front office to talk to the, not the principal, but a guy who was in charge of things like people like me. And he said, David, there's some things in life that you just have to do whether you like it or not. You have to go to, I'm not going to let you get out of physics. So I failed it. I failed and I got an F. Anyway, I've been painting all through the years, the long and the short of it. And I love painting. Painting led to cinema.
Well, now, your career in filmmaking, the story that people understand is it grew out of your work in painting. It led to an AFI grant, American Film Foundation Institute grant, a move to Los Angeles, and work on your first film, the avant-garde film, Eraserhead. Now, there's got to be a jump in here somewhere because it seems like you jumped from Eraserhead to a mainstream film. Can you just say what happened? It seems like a remarkable thing suddenly occurred in your life.
Well, what happened was I was going to just say Mel Brooks, but it's not quite fair just to say Mel Brooks. There's a man named Stuart Kornfeld who played a huge role in my life. And Jonathan Sanger, Eric Berggren, Christopher DeVore. Christopher and Eric, they wrote the screenplay, original screenplay of The Elephant Man. Stuart Kornfeld worked with Mel Brooks and got the screenplay to Mel through Anne Bancroft, his wife. And Jonathan Sanger got the screenplay because he and his wife's babysitter, the babysitter for the kids, was the girlfriend of either Eric or Chris. And anyway, it was all a strange thing. And Stuart told me about the Elephant Man at a restaurant. And when I heard the name, the Elephant Man, a bomb went off in my head. And I said, Stuart, that's the film I want to make. And when Mel finally decided he wanted to make this film, The Elephant Man, he said, Eric, you're in. Chris, you're in, because you wrote this original screenplay. Jonathan, you were a part of this. And Stuart, you were a part of this. But who is this David Lynch? And then they said, David made this film called Eraserhead, and you will have to see it. And I heard that Mel wanted to see Eraserhead before he would say, I'm part of Elephant Man. I said, well, it's been nice knowing you guys. And but it turned out, Mario, Mel saw The Elephant Man. And I had to go to be there after he saw it. So he was in the theater. The film was finished. The doors of the theater flew open. Mel came running toward me, embraced me, and said, you're a madman, you're in.
Well, David, we're going to play a little a very short video of Mel Brooks talking about you, okay?
All right, Mario.
All right, here we go.
Can't hear it.
We're going to try it again. That was a silent film, you know, that came before talkies.
And then came sound.
Yeah.
And it's very good luck when something goes wrong with the sound.
Oh, is that right?
The first screening, something goes wrong with the sound, is very good luck.
Oh gosh, thank you for telling us that. Did you just make that up on our behalf or no?
No.
Okay. Okay. Now just checking. I know you're so kind and so generous.
So you're going to think they're working on trying to get the sound from Mel?
All right, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you a question about Elephant Man while we do this. This is your first, what would you call it, Hollywood mainstream film?
It wasn't Hollywood, really. Well, it was Hollywood because of Mel, but this was his new company. He wanted to make a company that really wasn't, see, when people heard the word Mel Brooks, they think comedy, and he wanted to make films that weren't necessarily comedy. So Elephant Man was the first film of his new film company, Brooks Films. And I've been so lucky, Mario, in my life. Go figure that I would get to direct The Elephant Man, but it happened.
Well, okay, here we go.
Okay. You do the voice, Mario.
David, I was watching TV with you one time, and it was in German, and you actually translated for me without knowing any German. I'm afraid I can't do that here. Mel Brooks was saying that when he first met you, you see that he said, you know, he had his shirt pinned up right to the top. It's strange. And he talked like a Midwesterner, scared me, he said.
I have a thing about my collarbone. I don't like wind on my collarbone.
Well, you have just enlightened, you have solved a question that millions of people have had about you by explaining that. Thank you so much.
I've explained it before, but
no, I never heard that.
Yeah.
No, that's very good.
Yeah.
Now, okay, question.
In fact, I don't like people touching my collarbone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now, here you are with An Elephant Man. You get the job. Mel Brooks says, David, it's yours. Now you're suddenly working with a lot of people in a multi-million-dollar project. You're directing actors. Now, these are some of the actors. Sir Anthony Hopkins, Sir John Gielgud, Anne Bancroft. These are three of, you know, the most well-known actors in film or on the stage. What was that like?
Here's Mel again. He's still not talking.
He's not talking. I think we'll give up on the Mel video.
I'll never forget his.
Oh, 3 times
his shirt was always buttoned. He always wore kind of a white shirt. One of the first to do this insane thing. It was always buttoned here. It was kind of weird. No tie, just a shirt buttoned. And he sat, and he had a lot of R's. He said, "It's a pleasure to meet you, sir." A lot of R's, like a Midwestern kid. Scared me. I expected to meet a young Max Reinhardt. I expected the guy to have, like Picasso, 2 eyes on one side of his nose. And here is a young Charles Lindbergh. He looked just like Charles Lindbergh. He says, "We just have to move things because I have to think about directing it. Not, you know, not the screenplay, but the movie." Good talk. So I said, "You're hired." I mean, I hired him right then and there.
David, how old were you at the
That's
time?
not exactly the way it happened, but bless Mel Brooks' heart. You know, what a great guy to take a chance, really and truly.
Yeah. How old were you?
33.
Okay, so
I lost a lot of years making Eraserhead because I kept running out of money. And so it took 5 years or more to make Eraserhead. And then it was a couple of years after Eraserhead came out that I got The Elephant Man.
I heard that well, I read actually in a book you wrote that your father, who you loved, and your brother, who you had a lot of respect for, your older brother, really tried to talk you, oh, your younger brother,
Yeah.
really tried to talk you into just getting a regular job.
Yeah, one night they gathered me together in the living room. Dark. It was dark in the living room, and they sat me down and they say, "Dave, you've been on this Eraserhead film for many years. You have a wife and a daughter, and we think it's time for you to get a job, take on this responsibility." And it was, devastating to me.
Yeah. But you must have felt good. I understand that even during Elephant Man, one story that must have been just so fulfilling, you really admired Stanley Kubrick, one of the great filmmakers of all time. And one of your producers in Elephant Man said that he had met Kubrick, and Kubrick had invited him over to his house to see a movie. And he said, "Oh, I got to show you this movie. It's one of my favorites, Eraserhead." So you found out that Stanley Kubrick thought Eraserhead, once you had finished it, was one of his favorites.
That was a great moment for sure. It wasn't one of his favorites, it was his favorite. And
Okay.
it was the producer and several people that were working with George Lucas. They would come to Elstree Studios to check it out for George to come and shoot there. And they were, met Kubrick, and Kubrick invited him up to his house that night. And he said, "I want to show you my favorite film." And he showed him Eraserhead.
Well, here's one other thing that people hear about you, David. This is a good rumor, and that is that actors love working with you. And that's not necessarily common with directors. Directors are under a lot of pressure, and oftentimes they're going to get the job done by being very tough on the actors. Martin Scorsese admitted that before he learned TM, the way he got things done was just by throwing tantrums. And he said it wouldn't be a very pleasant atmosphere around the set when he did. But universally, actors not only feel good, I think one of the testaments of them enjoying working with you is that they all learn to practice TM as a result of it.
Not all of them, a lot of them. And, the thing is, I don't go around, trying to talk people into, meditating. But, when we're shooting, I meditate in the morning before I get to the set or the location. And then I meditate at lunch. I go to a trailer and I meditate. So a lot of times people ask me, what are you doing in that trailer, for so long at lunch? And why don't you come out and eat with everybody? And I said, well, I'm, meditating. And then either that's the end of it, or then they say, well, what is this meditating? And then if they ask me questions, I talk to them about it. And a lot of times when I talk to them about it, they say, you know what, I would like to do that, that same thing too. So one thing, a lot of them start. And then this thing about relationships, there's a thing called common sense. And they find out that a lot of companies operate on fear. The hierarchy, puts fear into people to think they'll work harder. And so they'll lose their job if they don't produce. They'll lose their job if they don't, do this or do this. And they put one person against another. Sam's going to get your position if you don't, watch out. And they put people in so much tension. There's so much stress. There's so much fear. And this is poison. And the people, it goes into their flesh and their brain and in their heart and all in their blood. And they go home at night and they bring all this fear and tension and stress and worry, and they bring it home, and the little kids feel it, and the wife or husband feels it, and it just makes a hell kind of feeling. And when the boss asks for something, they don't really love the boss. They don't, and they ask for some favor. They almost, like this, forget it. And so on the other side, if you are kind and considerate, and you care about the people that you work with, you're going to treat them well, and you're going to have a good atmosphere, and you're going to realize that people like coming to work, and they like, if you needed an extra favor, can we work an extra hour tonight? I know I don't want to even ask, but they say, of course we can. There's no problem. We have fun working together, and it's a good atmosphere. And actors, when there's tension and all this kind of stuff, it goes against their freedom, their ability to make it real from a deeper and deeper place. So it's money in the bank to make a good feeling so they can do their job and get it and make it real. It's common sense, Mario, and you know that.
I do, but oftentimes, David, it takes a wonderful person like you, who's a director, to create that atmosphere. If you don't mind my saying.
I don't mind anything you say, Mario.
Now, David, just as an example of someone who did a lot of work with you, I have the nerve to ask for another video.
It's an honor to be here at the Governor's Award and to speak about David Lynch. We met at a dinner party for a friend in New York, and the first thing David said to me was, you look like you could be Ingrid Bergman's daughter. Which caused one of our friends to say, you idiots, she is Ingrid Bergman's daughter. Our dinner conversation continued, and I was sitting next to David, and he told me he was casting for his new film, Blue Velvet. He was desperate to cast Helen Mirren in the role of Dorothy Valance, the tortured nightclub singer, but Helen declined the part because it was a little bit controversial. So dinner done, I went home, and the next day the doorbell rang, and a messenger delivered me the script of Blue Velvet with a note from David. It says, on second thought, since Helen wouldn't do the film, would you consider it? So I read the script. I also watched a few of David's films, Eraserhead and Elephant Men. There was so much anxiety, surrealism, mystery, and humor, dark humor in the first film, and so much warmth, compassion, and tenderness in the second film. I thought, wow, this director can capture a vast array of human emotion, and he has an incredible original style. But before accepting the role, because I knew it was a little controversial, I asked if I could meet Kyle MacLachlan, who had been cast as the lead. So Kyle and I got in a hotel room, and let me explain. We got into our hotel room to improvise the scenes that we were going to play, and we did them in front of David so we can see if we all were in the same wavelength and if we can all get together and work well together. And this is when I learned that with David, his words are not nearly as important as his reactions. He's a director whose face conveys exactly what he's thinking. I learned that when you are in one of his films, you have to let his quiet guide you. Simply put, you can tell what he likes and doesn't like by just looking at him. which is why right now I don't want to look at him. The emotions which David cannot hide are dug out of us actors, and we serve them for his film. And here is the core of his genius and his brilliance. For he and his film are always full of emotions. But emotions, as we all know very well, are not always rational, linear, clear. So don't look for straight, linear, simple narrative in David's film. He dwells much deeper than that. He dwells in a realm of emotion that elude simple explanation, definitive answer, rationality. He is attracted to mystery, and he tries to capture it for his film, the mysteries of our emotions, of our feelings, of our passions, of our life. David Muse is mystery.
David.
What a beautiful soul Isabella Rossellini is.
Yes, she certainly seems like such a beautiful person. I know you know her very well. This honorary award that you received last year by the Board of Governors of the Academy, it said, quote, "It celebrates extraordinary achievements by a leader in motion pictures." I looked up who the past recipients were of this award. Charlie Chaplin, DeMille, Elia Kazan, Sidney Lumet, Akira Kurosawa, Lena Wertmuller, Godard, and Fellini. I mean, David, you gave the shortest acceptance speech in history, you know, but you must have been full of some sort of feeling of gratification, pride that you could be honored in this way. It was certainly, everyone knew, well-deserved. Want to give a little acceptance? I mean, how did you feel about it?
Mario, everything is a gift in life. That's it. You don't know quite how it happens, but you know, it's all just such a gift, and I don't know how it happened.
I know you have the joy of the work. You know, you've talked many times about, I just like the work. I don't worry about, you know, the fruit of the action, which is very Vedic. You know, that's a great philosophy. But there is beautiful fruit in the action sometimes that you can also enjoy. And this was certainly one of them. Let's talk a little bit about TM. You learned TM. I think I recall you saying that when you first heard about meditation, it wasn't something you were particularly drawn to. You thought maybe it wasn't for the active person. So what got you involved in TM initially?
I always say two things got me involved, and then the third thing. The first two were, one was a phrase: "True happiness is not out there. True happiness lies within." And that phrase, I always say, had a ring of truth to it for me. But the phrase doesn't tell you where the within is, nor does it tell you how to get there. Another thing I heard was this word enlightenment. And I thought, is it really real? Is it such a thing? Or is this some sort of Eastern thing that, you know, may be real in some way for somebody in the East, but I'm in the West. Is there such a thing as enlightenment? So I wondered about those things. And then my sister called one day and said that she'd started Transcendental Meditation as taught by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, and I liked what she told me about it. And just before that, I'd suddenly become a seeker, and I started looking into all different kinds of meditation and asking people questions. This thing of becoming a seeker is a sort of a secret thing that gets people, you know, on one path or another. And so but I heard a change in my sister's voice, more self-assuredness, more happiness. And I said, this is for me. And I thought maybe this meditation would be a way to find that happiness within.
David, you used to be very active when you learned TM, going to the center you were near to in Los Angeles. I know you went to see Maharishi Mahesh Yogi in those days. That was something not as rare as in later years, because Maharishi was doing world tours and he was appearing on television. He was on PBS. He was on the Merv Griffin show. This is a picture, by the way, of you and I think it's Henry, is it? And
Henry Sims and Penny
Penny
Hint.
Hintz. Yeah, Penny Hintz, the wonderful TM teacher. And I think you're on your way in to see Maharishi, and somehow you got in the front row.
Not
Now-
this. No,
Not this time?
No, I went twice, and this I think is the second time. The
Okay.
first time, there's a whole story about how I ended up in the front row. So that was another kind of incredible moment in my life.
Well, you've met with Maharishi, not just you've studied with him. In addition to learning TM, you've gone deeply into the knowledge that is at the core of the Transcendental Meditation technique. I have to ask you, any impression that you had the first time you met Maharishi, or as you got to know him?
I don't know how it happened, but I just have this deep love for Maharishi. I just love Maharishi. I think Maharishi's, I always say, the greatest master that ever walked the earth. I said some could be as great, for sure, but none could be greater. Maharishi revived this Vedic knowledge, Vedic technologies. Transcendental meditation is one of those technologies. And this is, monumental. It'll be monumental when people look back. It's such a gift to be given a technique that brings us back so we can experience the transcendent within, that field within that's filled with happiness, and creativity and love and energy and intelligence. All these things that were, really, would be great to have a bunch of are there within each one of us. And he hooked us up to that. Maharishi is just the best. Great sense of humor, great feeling listening to him talk. And it's just like the greatest person to know is around, and I'm wanting to help the world. Just a fantastic thing. Just the greatest. And thank goodness he came along. I'd have nothing to talk about if it wasn't for Maharishi. I don't like to talk about my films. I don't answer questions about them, what they mean or anything, but I like to talk about Maharishi's knowledge. And like I said, I wouldn't know what to talk about if he didn't say what it was that I learned. And it's just that way.
Yeah.
It's a great technique for human beings. It frees us. And, it brings all these things that we desperately need and want. And it's just such a blessing.
Well, David, I know that when you've been inspired to come to be more active in speaking. I know it's not your favorite thing, going and speaking before large groups of people. I was on a tour with you where we did nothing every day but have large groups of people. And but I know you want to communicate, you want to inspire people. Your foundation, you've helped more than 1 million children and adults to learn TM. I know you don't want to stop. I remember talking to you one time and you said, it's nothing. I want billions of people to learn TM, not millions. What do you think of this? I know you have a new initiative with Bob Roth, the executive director of your foundation. Heal the Healers Now. It seems incredibly timely and important, since the foundation has shown that TM can really help people who are suffering from trauma. You were on page 8. That page 6, is it? At the New York Post, page 6, talking about it the other day. You think this is another one of your important initiatives?
Yes, Mario. But there's, again, it's common sense. This foundation is called David Lynch Foundation for Consciousness-Based Education and World Peace. And this field within is a field of unbounded intelligence, creativity, happiness, love, energy, power, and peace. And when human beings receive this technique, Transcendental Meditation, they now have the ability to dive within and experience that field within. Every time a human being experiences it, they unfold some of that, and they start to grow in that. The side effect of growing in that light of that transcendent and those positive qualities is negativity starts to go away, just like darkness goes away when the light comes. This is a true thing. Think about it. Then you think about these doctors and nurses, tremendous stress, 12-hour shifts, life and death situations, you know, not enough gear maybe, or worries about this, worried about getting it yourself, helping people, seeing people die, seeing people suffer. And they're going to take on trauma, stress, and you give them this technique, it's going to save them. Like the vets coming back from war. They don't like to admit it. They're soldiers. They want to keep the, you know, macho thing, men and women. But when they come back, if they've got traumatic stress, it ruins their life. Their life is a nightmare, day and night. Their family is ruined. Their friendships are ruined. And they get this technique, Transcendental Meditation. Boom, a whole new world comes back to them. This is like a blessing beyond the beyond. Peace comes, inner peace. People become a light unto themselves. I asked Maharishi, what can people do to help bring this peace on earth? He said, tell them to start Transcendental Meditation and become a light unto themselves. You could have a world filled with darkness, negativity, but all it takes is a few people lighting that lamp within. Boom. Things start getting better for everyone. Everybody on this call, every meditator, you're bringing this light to this world. Everybody knows this is a dark place. There's a lot of problems. Keep meditating regularly. Don't take no for an answer. Get your friends to meditate. And let's get this world going in a peaceful, rational, beautiful way for everyone.
Beautiful, David. You know, one of the questions that I see has come in from people listening is just about creativity and the occurrence of what this person calls the creative block. They said, even if you're practicing TM, what do you think can help sometimes to overcome a feeling like you have a block in your creativity?
Let's say I always equate catching ideas to fishing. Ideas are what we need in a creative, you know, script, or writing a script, or doing a painting, anything. Ideas are the thing. So ideas are like catching ideas, catching like fish. You need patience and you need some bait. And I think, looking back, just a desire for an idea is like baiting a hook. You desire, and the desire starts pulling ideas in. There's trillions of ideas, but pulling ideas in that we might fall in love with. And if we just catch one little fish that we love, that becomes even more bait. And so you think about that little fish and you keep desiring, now more will swim in. and you'll start, if you're writing a script or a book, more will swim in, and scenes will start emerging, characters will start coming, this whole thing will start coming. And if they don't come, just like in fishing, move to a different part of the lake, or the ocean, or whatever. Just move a little bit, get some different things going, and then think from that place, and desire from that place. Something will trigger, and they'll start pouring in. There's no such they're out there ready for us to catch. And meditate regularly. And meditating regularly, ideas, another way to look at it is they flow through a tube. And if you're stressed, the tube gets cramped and they can't get through. So you want to get that deep relaxation and feeling of bliss, and whoa, and the tube just starts opening, and those little ideas can start flowing through, and you'll catch them. And if you get stressed, it stops them from flowing.
David, this is another question, from one of the many people who have seen your films many times. This fan, his name is John, he wonders, do you think about narrative conventions and defying them when you are creating a film?
No.
Or are you simply following your own instincts when you're doing a script?
First of all, instinct means I'm hungry, I want to eat. Intuition is the thing. Number one tool is intuition, transcendental meditation, and catching ideas. So transcendental meditation will help intuition and catching ideas. And it'll help in the happiness of the doing. So intuition is a knowingness. And when you think about it, it's like, how do you know? How do you know? And so when you experience this field within, it's in a field that is all knowingness, all knowingness. It's know that by which nothing is left to be known. It's like right within us. And this intuition is what we rely on in making anything. It's so important. And catching the ideas, so important. Transcendental meditation helps, bring both those things.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
And also, now in film school, they're teaching formulas for feature films. It's like being put into prison. As soon as you have a formula, then it doesn't allow for anything out here. So don't you go by intuition and the ideas that come, and if you don't understand them right away, just think about them as they gather together, and something thrilling for you can come, and you'll be excited about it, and you'll make that. Not worrying about what will come in terms of money or fame or anything. You'll just fall in love with the ideas and the thing that came. And love is what drives the boat. Love is what drives the boat.
Beautiful, David. Beautiful, David. David, there's a question from someone about your book, Catching the Big Fish. They love your book, and they love this particular quote in your book, and they wondered if you'd comment on it. They like it, but feel it needs some commentary. It begins one of your chapters, and it says, "We are like the spider. We weave our life and then move along in it. We are like the dreamer who dreams and then lives in the dream. This is true for the entire universe." What do you think?
Those are pretty lines from the Vedas.
They're from the Upanishads. Yeah.
Upanishads, which are part of the Vedic literature, and so they were supplied by the great Judy Booth, my dear friend, and just a great soul. And hello to Judy if she's listening. We are like the dreamer who dreams. We are like the spider who weaves. We live, we weave, and we go into the web we've woven. We go into the dream we've dreamed. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. This is all, they say consciousness alone is. It's hard to believe in a way, but all this is consciousness, nothing but. There is only consciousness. Mario is the same as me. I'm the same as Mario, same as the lamp, same as Maharishi, same as the picture on the wall, same as the Venetian blinds. It's all consciousness. And it's all, totality. Everything is all beautiful. Everything is all total fulfillment, bliss. It's there for us. The more we meditate, the more we come into that awareness. I'm not there yet, but I know life is way better for me now than it was before I started Transcendental Meditation 40 some odd years ago. So it's a beautiful, like the Beatles said, magical mystery tour. There's signposts along the way, but the final thing happens person by person. It's a subjective science, and enlightenment is real. I'm convinced it's real, and it's waiting for us out there. And the way to it is to transcend every day. That's the secret. That's the way to go. The way to peace is in that field within. The way to enlightenment is in that field within.
Beautiful. David, there is a question from a photographer who's branching out into different parts of art, and he's heard you say that film is a melding of a bunch of different art, sound and motion and light. He's wondering if you think that painting will continue. Are you in your studio right now?
Yes.
So I know that your painting alone, I don't know how many people are aware, has gained tremendous appreciation. In 2018, there was a major exhibition of your work at the Bonafont Museum in Maastricht, which drew people from all over Europe who were attending TFAF there, the European Fine Arts Fair. And in New York, I read on cultura.nyc that the exhibit of your painting and the electric lighting that you had made last fall in New York City at the major gallery, Sperone Westwater, was a huge success. There are some pictures of it right there, actually. That's the gallery.
That's a beautiful gallery. Angelo just put together a great show.
Yeah. Now, you're still staying, even though you've done this melding, you're still in love with painting. And I believe you have said that painting will always be something that goes on, that there's something fundamental about painting, that it's not going to go away, never go away.
Every art form is eternal. It'll never go away. There's some thrill to painting, to paint. And there's some thrill to the lithography, some thrill to just drawing with a pencil, some thrill for watercolors, some thrill for cinema. It's just, there's these different mediums to express things with, and they're all infinitely deep. You get to going with one and they start talking to you. There's a language between you and the medium. You start talking to each other and you go, and it's infinitely deep. There's no end to it.